Taking it out of Canberra, Resources Minister Madeleine King is speaking. Discussions with gas companies, big issue, it has been for a while, supply of gas for the Australian market. The release said there was a heads of agreement. Let's listen in to hear what has happened.
Heads of agreement also ensures all of the information regarding notice and volumes will be easily found on company websites. This new level of transparency, as well as increased supply, will put downward pressure on prices. The new heads of agreement also increases producers' accountability. They will report to me quarterly on their actions to supply the domestic market and provide the ACCC whatever information it requests. With this new heads of agreement and the commitments made in writing to me, including plans to prevent the shortfall of gas in 2023, I do not need to pull the trigger on the Australian domestic gas supply mechanism. This agreement will not impact supplies to overseas customers and does not impact existing contracts. I want to state very firmly and clearly that Australia will always be a trusted and reliable trading partner and a safe place to invest. The Albanese government is committed to ensuring affordable, reliable and secure energy for Australian households and businesses. Under the Albanese government, Australia has a stable energy policy and a clear path forward, working with the states, industry and investors on addressing the mess left by the former government. And lastly, I just want to thank my team, the department and everyone that has been involved in negotiation on the heads of agreement. They've done a great deal of work since we started this activity in July, and it has come to a successful conclusion. With that, I'm happy to take questions.
Will ensure competitive and reasonable terms. What's the mechanism for making that the case?
The mechanism there is a definition in the heads of agreement, but also through the code of conduct itself. And the ACCC monitoring as well, obviously are in competition, that being their main job.
So it's wording, it's not a specific benchmark or anything like that?
Well, it's a code of conduct that sets an expectation around behaviour, and because of, I put into this agreement that there would be those quarterly reporting meetings so that we can make sure, I can make sure that that code of conduct is being adhered to, and if we see any missteps or unexpected events out of this or an impression that the code of conduct has not been adhered to, that will be an opportunity for me to address that directly with the LNG exporters, and also a chance for them to explain how the supply is going to continue into those winter peaks and also summer high demands.
When can consumers start to see this flow through to their gas bills and contracts, and are the sort of the prices of $10 a gigajoule, are those days over?
There's no doubt gas prices are very unlikely to return to the low points of like $6 or $8 or even $10. I do expect with the increased supply that there will be downward pressure on prices. That is consistently the advice we have been provided with, and I do expect to see that, and I expect the LNG exporters to make sure that that happens. For commercial and industrial users, now is the time for them to start renegotiating with exporters under the terms set out in this heads of agreement, particularly the code, acknowledging that, as I said in my statement earlier, that they weren't all happy with this, but it is a starting point and an important starting point that sets out that transparency and certainty around volumes and timings, all the things that the ACCC report pointed out was not happening in those purchasing agreements.
And just on those long-term prices, that's never going to happen again. It's not like just
you couldn't say it will never happen again, but the truth is at the moment we're in a global energy crisis. I mean, we've all seen what's happening in Europe. So, and, we have trading partners who have had, their gas supply cut off from other sources as well. So it'll continue to be a pretty heavy crunch on gas prices and other energy prices for that matter. So I don't see this changing in the short term, and it won't change without the war in Ukraine ending, right? Like it's a pretty volatile set of circumstances the globe is facing. But I do expect that increasing the domestic supply and certainty around domestic supply will bring downward pressure on those prices.
Minister, so it stipulates that get net back price parity for the domestic market on exports. Industry groups and heavy gas users like brickmakers, food processors have been lobbying for financial assistance or either for the government to impose cut price gas contracts onto gas producers. Has the government ruled that out? Or if not, are you willing to see demand destruction in the manufacturing sector and see some businesses close potentially?
I'm not willing to see any businesses close, absolutely not. But what we have agreed is an important principle that domestic customers won't pay more than what international customers pay on that spot market for international shipments. And that was a demand that was made pretty clear. As to bringing prices to the very low levels, which was spoken about before, which was very low levels of gas prices were during COVID when some of the producers themselves were close to going out of business. So, we are in an open international market. We made this country face the world in the 80s, and it has been responsible for a great deal of our prosperity. The flip side of that is when there are international price crunches like now is that we do get those knock-on effects. So I expect manufacturers now to be able to start negotiations that they might have been putting off with the somewhat unfounded expectation that there might have been a very low price cap put on what is an open market and has been for some time. Sorry, you had a question.
Thanks, Minister. How will an agreement like this, do you see its potential to interact with what we've seen with the early closure, for example, of the coal-fired power station in Victoria today? Obviously, that is still years away, but we are seeing across the board coal-fired power being taken out of the market sooner. Is the way to shore up supply and security in the grid further agreements like this? Do we need to do more to ensure there's domestic gas in the system?
Certainly. Well, the closure announced today is what we're seeing, all over the country, where different states are move away from coal-fired power generation. Every coal-fired power station has announced a closure date now. That's somewhat a reflection of the times and that transition, as you mentioned. What we need to ensure is that those closures are properly managed and that as they move out of the power generation system, we make sure there is supply of other power sources. As you know, this government is very committed, absolutely committed to taking action on climate change. We have enacted the 2 acts that commit us to that aim of net zero emissions by 2050. And we're committed, and with Minister Bowen, he's working with state ministers on that energy plan, on ensuring we transform the energy system and ensure we invest in renewables so that we can backfill, so to speak, the quite heavy reliance on coal at the moment in this country.
All right, so Madeleine King there, the Resources Minister, with an announcement. Look, it's basically the latest attempt from the government, Labor government and the coalition government's trying this before, to shore up gas supply and also make sure price is not too high in Australia. Any uncontracted gas has to be offered domestically first and at the same price as what would be paid for internationally.